What's up guys, TheJordude here, back again with another Shadowverse video. This video is sponsored by Cygames. If you are interested in Shadowverse and you haven't downloaded it already, you could go check out the link down below in the description, and you can download it on any of your mobile devices or on your PC through Steam. If you're into the competitive side of Shadowverse, I'll also link down below in the description where you can go check out NGE, where they have official tournaments, and you could also check out the Battlefy link for community tournaments. So in today's video, I wanted to talk about closed decklist tournaments. So basically what I mean by closed decklist tournaments is when you are playing in the tournament and you don't know what decks your opponent are playing, so you don't have access to their exact link of their deck list, so you can't see card for card what is exactly in their decks. So this is very common in the western side of Shadowverse tournaments, because we often do open list tournaments, mainly kind of for the administrative purposes. It makes things a lot easier for admins, tournament organizers, to just compile all the deck lists and have it open for all the players to see, and that also decreases the chance of any kind of issues that would arise, such as someone changing their deck list mid-tournament, or just changing a couple cards in the tournament. It just makes things a lot easier that way. But there are a lot of cases, especially I believe in Japan, they have, or in the Asian side of Shadowverse, they have a lot of closed decklist tournaments. So basically, you don't get to see what your opponent's playing. And this is very common, especially when I play on Shadowverse ratings. That it's closed, you don't know what your opponent is playing ahead of time, and the difference between closed decklist and open decklist, open decklist meaning you can see exactly what decks your opponent is playing card for card, is quite different, and it changes a lot of things when you're preparing for tournaments and while you're playing in tournaments. So the first thing I want to say about closed decklist tournaments is that it allows players to bring off meta, or what we call in other games rogue decks. So basically decks that you don't typically ever see in ladder, or you don't see in ladder too much, or you don't see in competitive tournaments too much. So these decks could be just like completely odd archetypes, like what's something crazy? Something like a control commander sword with Leonidas. You don't really ever see that. Or a PTP blood or something crazy like that. Or it doesn't have to be like extremely off the edge, but you could play something just that you don't see too often. Something like control blood, or ramp control dragon. And you can make these decks, you could put a lot of surprises, you could put in more tech cards that your opponent won't often play around or expect to see. So as you can see in this ramp control dragon, I have Rahab in here, as well as Lucifer's in my Sahaquil package. So there's no actually kind of like a huge burst damage like what we see ramp dragon nowadays with Dead Sea Queen and Genesis Dragon with Ariete or Erd. Instead, this is purely just ramp and playing big stuff, while being good against aggro because you have cards like Rahab, Grimnir, Itherfil, Lucifer. And for this control blood, typically control bloods usually will play a win condition such as Spawn of the Abyss plus Azazel. However, this deck doesn't have any of that. Instead, it's just pure control, pure removals such as Bahamut Revelations, just trying to clear all of your opponent's stuff, even Blood Hungry Matriarch. So as you can see from the control dragon and the control blood is more tailored for to beat aggro decks, and your opponent won't be able to expect cards like Blood Hungry Matriarch in a closed deck list. So here I just threw in a couple examples I could think of on the top of my head on tech cards that you could also put into your decks in closed deck list tournaments that your opponent might not expect, and it can completely swing it around. So cards like Tsubaki, Mr. Full Moon, these cards you wouldn't really expect. So you play something really big, and then they Full Moon you or Tsubaki you, and then you're just like, what just happened, right? Or Calamitous Curse maybe in their Dirt Rune, where you expect them to have Mutagenic Bolt, but instead they Calamitous Curse, clear your entire board. Maybe a mid-range Shadow is running Deathly Tyrant. Not every mid-Shadow is running it. So while you think you're safe, they suddenly drop Tyrant and kill you. Maybe like a Ramp Dragon or Control Blood, or maybe even Control Havens playing Odin and just banishes your really big threat. maybe this haven that looked like it was being a just like a control haven or an Aegis haven actually turns out to be a Seraph haven. So when in closed deckless tournaments, you really can't expect to see certain cards, especially if they're going to be like 1 or 2 ofs that are just in there to counter something in particular. So it's while you're playing in your match, you think your things are going well, bam, a tech card comes out. And that's actually one of the really fun parts about closed deckless tournaments, is that you could bring these kind of off meta decks and these really techie cards, which you normally won't bring in open deckless because people could just look at it and play around it and expect it. So that's like one of the really big pros about closed deckless, is that you could bring a lot more variety to the tournament, and it's a lot more viable because people can't really expect it and it becomes a surprise to them. Instead of playing off meta decks and trying to catch people off guard and surprise them, another strategy to closed deckless tournaments is just bringing like good solid decks that have good probabilities of winning across the board. And this is, of course, minimizes your variance and your risk when you're playing in closed deckless tournaments, because you don't know what your opponent's playing, so you might as well just play decks that do the same thing every time, and it's not going to have different mulligans for different matchups. For example, like Control Blood, I might keep certain card, like just removal against aggro if it's an aggro matchup, but if it's a control matchup, I would just look for card advantage, right? But so instead of having like those different situations, you just bring overall good decks such as Aggro Blood. Like, you're going to mulligan the same for Aggro Blood pretty much every time. You're going to look for your 1 drops, you're going to look for your 2 drops. Same as Aggro Forest, you're going to look for your 1 drops, you're going to look for your 2 drops. So basically, if you don't want to play around the risk and you don't want to try to play around people's surprises, you just play decks that just do their own thing. You play that have the same strategy in pretty much every matchup, and then that's just pretty much another way of going at it in closed deckless tournaments. So I'm going to have some replays going on, so it's something for you guys to watch while I continue talking. So in these examples, I was playing on Shadowverse ratings, so it's best of 3, no ban, 2 decks, and it's closed, so you don't know what class or what deck list that they're playing. So my opponent was playing Dragon, and so Dragon, especially on Shadowverse ratings, could be completely different. Someone could be playing a Ramp Dragon, they could be playing Queen combo Ramp Dragon, Storm Dragon, or they could be playing PDK Dragon. And so basically, when you're playing against that matchup, you have to kind of look out for cards that might indicate to you that it's a PDK Dragon or it's a Ramp Dragon. Generally, if they're playing stuff like Ivory Dragon or just like a lot more lower cost followers, then it tells you it's going to be a PDK. But if not, maybe it's Ramp Dragon. And if it is Ramp Dragon, are they playing the combo? Does it look like that they're playing the combo? Are they playing Staircase? Are they playing Genesis Dragon? Did they play an Erd? So maybe they have a Forte. If they don't have any of those things, maybe they're just playing standard Ramp Dragon, maybe they're playing Polyphonic Roar. So there's a lot of things you have to think about and consider. So when you're playing in closed deck list tournaments, you do need to study up kind of general deck lists and like different archetypes of a deck that could be played in the craft. And then if you can identify the archetype, what kind of deck lists are there, what kind of versions of the deck are there, and then what kind of signs can tell you what version that they're playing. Because most of the time, if they are playing a similar deck to one that's been posted online, then most of the time, like at least 90% of the deck list will be the same, and then you would just have to think about the tech cards that they may have included. So in closed deck list tournaments, the ban strategy is actually quite a bit different than open deck lists, because you don't know what exactly your opponent's playing, and every craft has different decks that they could play. So such as Rune, they could play D-Shift or Aggro Dirt Rune, which plays completely different and has different matchups. It's a lot harder to see what you want to ban from your opponent. So sometimes you can make rules for yourself, like if your lineup's bad against D-Shift, you could just be banning Rune every time despite them possibly having a Dirt Rune. Or you can make educated guess, like if they have aggro decks, maybe that Rune deck is a D-Shift or is it aggro Dirt, and then you could ban that instead. Later into tournaments though, you might gain some information from either their past opponents, friends or teammates, or if they played on stream, some tournaments get streamed, and you watch them, or if you're watching the stream, you could study up on the players and see what kind of decks and cards they're playing. While into the match, you do have to be more cautious, especially if it's your first time playing against that deck, because they could have odd cards or odd tech cards. As you've seen, they might have maybe a Tsubaki or a Blood Hungry Matriarch or a Rahab. So you do have to be careful about these kind of things. But generally, though, you should consider it especially if they're playing cards that are kind of weird. Then you do have to think about those. But while you're playing against that deck, it's very good to keep track of the cards they play. So maybe having a pen or paper or a just like your Word document, you're just typing out all the cards that they've played. And then if you beat that deck, because most tournaments in Shadowverse are Conquest, they have to play that deck again if they lose. So then you at least have maybe half of their deck written out, so that you know like half of the cards that they're playing. So you could play around at least that. Now you do have to be careful for like really weird tech cards, but you also have to be careful for just like variants of common deck lists. So maybe a deck like Aggro Forest. Now I would say 30 to 35 cards in the deck is pretty set in stone, pretty core. However, there are some variations, like some decks are playing Blessed Fairy Dancer, whereas some decks are playing the Elven Princess Mage instead. So you should be also looking out for those differences, and if you do see them, then you should write it down and keep note of it. And that's pretty much it for this video, guys. I hope you guys enjoyed. If you did, make sure you give this video a thumbs up and subscribe, and follow me in the social media links down below in the description. My Twitter and Twitch is all down there. And that's going to be it. So I'm just going to let this replay continue, and I'll see you guys next time. Peace.